you been, man?
I've been great. How about you?
I've been good. Been good. Really, really busy. Also, been looking forward to this conversation only because, we don't get to catch up that often. And you've been helping us a lot. So I am going to pick your brain a little bit more about some things that you can help us with.
I love it. I'm more than happy to. It's this really unique thing, and I'm sure you're seeing this and I remember this from MarketMan, where when you're first getting started, and I see this now at Starfish, is you have a lot of time. And you talk to a lot of people. And then all of a sudden, as you grow, your calendar just gets stacked up.
Oh,
and
man.
Time is tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Saying no is key once you start growing.
Totally.
Anyways, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I've been a listener for a long time, so it's exciting to be here.
Awesome. Well, we have a lot to dig into today. I want to talk about your new company. And also just want to kind of talk about trajectory of how you got to where you are today. But I was doing a little digging.
Yep.
And if it's cool, I want to talk about this toilet paper company because it's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
First of all,
thank you.
Star Toilet Paper, which, excuse me, I'm seeing a theme of this word star through your companies. And by the way, do you think about themes of how you think about your companies? I have a 4-letter, I've started 3 companies, Bark, Make, and Meez, and I'm a big 4-letter word type person, but it sounds like star is kind of a through line for you.
The answer is yes. Now it is, but originally it was that was not an intended purpose. When I had this very clear memory of, I was actually on Birthright when I was working on, when the first idea of Star Toilet Paper was really in my head. And I was reading Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. And he was talking about how you need something that is really clearly recognizable from a branding standpoint. And his example is the McDonald's arches. You could see that anywhere in the world and you know exactly what it is. So what is super interesting was I was reading this and I was working on Star Toilet Paper, and it was all right, we did ads on toilet paper, and I wanted something on the bottom that was really clear that people would know us by, and thought of a star, and now I've just been carrying that throughout. So yes, now it is carried, but accidental one at first.
Well, okay, let's talk about Star Toilet Paper because it's a smart idea. Just for the audience, it's basically advertising on toilet paper. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's not novel and it's happened before, but I was, I just literally, we Googled Jordan Silverman, and then actually it didn't pop up. It was, I think my assistant did a little bit of digging on some other places to find it, but why isn't this a thing, right? Every public place you go to should have advertising on the toilet paper because you're guaranteed to see it. I think people look at their toilet paper. I don't know.
Listen, I'll give you the whole backstory. So I went to University of Michigan, and I was literally just going to the bathroom at the library, just sitting there, and I'm sure most of us, just reading my phone, and see sometimes there's posters for us guys. A lot of times, when you go to stadiums or something, there's things above the urinals at a bar or something. So the idea just hit me it's a captive audience, and nobody's really trying to do something here. So the idea was really simple. People read and want something to do in the bathroom, and can we give it to them? So yes is the answer. Star Toilet Paper started off, it evolved, but it started off super simple of ads on toilet paper. That's it. Why is it not a thing? We had 2 things that kind of stopped us, and we can dive deeper into it. But number 1 was not everyone wants printed toilet paper, which totally makes sense. We had a lot of people worried about is this safe? Can I use this?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
And then the second thing is it's hard to manufacture. The toilet paper, the toilet paper industry as a whole is very geared towards maximum quantity versus high quality product that is customized.
Yeah, it's so funny how by the way, we don't need to spend a ton of time on your toilet paper company for when you're in college. I just thought it was fun to talk about.
It taught me a lot, and it led me to where I am. So I like.
Yeah, I mean that's why these things are important. As I when I first, just to sort of wind up a little bit, I first met you when you were the VP of customer success, or maybe you weren't even that yet. But you were running customer success at
Correct.
a company called MarketMan. And we were just starting meez, and I don't even know how we got connected. I think because we were talking to customers and they were using...
You were an initial customer of MarketMan.
That's right. You
guys were MarketMan customers. This is really early in the MarketMan days where I was director of CS, which basically meant I spent half my time being a director and half my time being a CSM.
That's right.
And I was your account manager.
Oh yeah, I think we were. I was testing at MarketMan in one of the brands in my last company in the last company I was running, Orify.
Yep.
I forgot about that. Wow. Okay. So
pre-meez.
That's not actually how we started. We talked then, but you were selling me, or at some 100%. Point. So I think 100%. I probably didn't even remember the interactions.
Yeah.
But then, as I was launching meez, I don't remember how, but we started talking maybe about integrations or something like that. And you were just, and you still to this day have been the most proactively helpful person
I appreciate it.
I've ever met. Like just going out of your way to help, and going out of your way to ask questions and to just sort of dig into what we were doing, even though, theoretically some of the things that we were doing were kind of competitive. And I think that's when I knew right away, okay, one, this guy's awesome. Two,
thank you.
Very clearly an entrepreneur. I had no idea that you had started other companies, and but I knew this guy's probably going to start something at some point, just because you had that, you had that approach and that autonomy, which I love about entrepreneurship is it's somewhat innate, but you started this company, this toilet paper company, and it's so funny, right? Like the nuance that you don't think about when you start a company. Like everybody says, "Oh, it's such a good idea," but then you find all the shit, all the things that make it really hard.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you're finding that now with the company we're here to talk about mostly, which is your new AI based profit margin company. But anyways, what were the biggest takeaways from that company you started in college that have stuck with you to this day?
So I think the first thing is listen to customers. So I had this very distinct memory of, we were doing Star toilet paper and we went to a movie theater chain, and we had this movie theater chain, pretty big chain, that was loved the idea. And they said, okay, we want to do this, but instead of printed toilet paper, we want printed paper towels. Can you guys do it? Technically, yes, could do it. But in my head, I was just no, we are a printed toilet paper company. That's what we do. And I said, no, we can do. So I think the first thing that it taught me was focus on the problem you're trying to solve, not the solution, right? So the problem I was trying to solve at Star Toilet Paper was, in digital age, it's getting harder and harder to reach people. And this was 2011, 2012 at this point, right? So it's not as digital as it is today, but it's getting harder and harder to reach people. And I knew that there was a captive audience there, and I should have just been focusing on the problem, not the solution. I think that's carried with me today. The second thing that it really taught me was hard work. I remember when we were doing it, I said, all right, here are the 8 companies I want to work with. And I literally went door to door to those 8 companies in Ann Arbor. I was they're all going to sign up. I think I spoke to 2 people out of the 8, and they both said no to me. And it was just whoa, this is going to be a lot harder than I expected it to be. So I think the 2 main things I learned, and I still carry with me today, are listen to customers, and it's never as easy as you think it's going to be. It's almost always harder.
Yeah. I almost feel that's, first of all, I totally agree. I almost feel the hard work is, everybody, of course, no matter what you do, if you don't work hard, and that doesn't mean you need to work hard 24/7 every day, but you need to work hard when you're working.
Yep.
But I feel what you're talking about is more the grit and perseverance. Totally. When you start anything you start, and that's why I always tell people whenever I hear someone say, there are other people doing this, or I have this idea, but everybody has this idea. I'm none of that matters, because the reason why most companies don't get started is because you have to get over the first hump, and that is so friggin' hard. I remember when we started meez, and I have this vision of why the heck are we doing, all this work on Google Sheets? Why is everybody doing their own formulas? Why are we putting videos here and all this? Like, this is insane. And I was like, this is obvious, right? Everybody just kind of like love that we've created this new thing. No, everyone's like, no, I do it this way. I've been doing it this way forever. And I'm very particular. And all they had for a year or 2 years, 3 years before we, actually went live was every reason why we shouldn't do this. And, there was every reason to just not start or not continue. And that's the beauty of when you like start a business, right? Is like getting past that. It only gets harder, right? But that part is one of the hardest parts. I don't know if you agree, but
I'm a big baseball fan, so I like the movie Field of Dreams, and the whole premise of Field of Dreams is like, if you build it, they will come. And like, I think a lot of people in software think about that, right? Like, oh, it's a freemium product. I'm just going to offer freemium, and everyone will sign up. And like, no, like just because you have a great product doesn't mean that's how you fill top of funnel. And I think that's like the hardest thing is just how do you get people to know about it? How do you get people to change how they do things today? So much of what we do, and this is what you're talking about, Josh, is change management. And especially in the restaurant industry, nobody wants to change. It's such an old school industry. And that's part of why I love it. But it's hard to break through.
Yeah, it really is. You have to have the delta between the value they're getting before they use your product and then the after needs to be far greater than the value plus all the energy it takes to change. And I think that usually gets that gets missed.
Yep.
Well, we're going to talk. I promise we're going to talk about Starfish because I actually have a bunch of questions as well. Yeah, and I'm super interested to learn selfishly about a few things. But before we do, so you ran customer success at MarketMan, and I think a lot of people, including me, when I first started, was like, "What the fuck is customer success? What does it even mean?" Like, I know customer support, I know sales, I know account management. It's kind of a new thing. I know this, the company Gainsight, brought it to more of a sort of ubiquitous thing. But like, what is customer success, and why should we talk mostly restaurants? Like, why should they care about it, and what should we expect from customer success in a tech company that's selling to restaurants?
So it's funny. So was building Star Toilet Paper. We ran into the issues I had talked about before, shut down the company, and I was CEO. Like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do next, but I was like, I like talking to people. I like building relationships. Like, let me get into sales. So after Star TP, I went to a company that was a social monitoring and listening company, and I basically ran the sales team there. So I ran inbound sales, outbound sales as the VP of sales. And like, it was great. But I realized I got into sales to build relationships with people. And I've always been SMB and mid-market SaaS, SMB mid-market tech. And
small business and
thank you.
Medium-sized companies.
Yes. And when you do sales, you don't build relationships. You sell them, and then you move on to the next one. And you sell them, and you move on to the next one. So that's really what drove me to customer success, because customer success, your responsibility is to take your client from a blank account. They paid with their credit card. They have a blank account to achieving their goal. So every single customer is either paying you with time or money for a specific reason. It's your job as customer success to get them to that very specific outcome in the fastest, painful way possible. That's what customer success is.
And I'm gonna be careful here to like make sure this is broad enough that it's accretive to the conversation for everybody. But you said paying with time or money. So does that mean that customer success also services folks that are taking a free trial?
At MarketMan, what we did a lot of was, and I think this is true in a lot of the restaurant industry and just general industry, is when you're a software company, if you're working with a larger brand, chances are they're going to want to do some sort of pilot or trial to make sure that the product works. They're not just going to sign up all 50 or 100 locations at once. So what we did a lot of for customer success was pilots with larger companies, where imagine you're running a 50 location pizza chain. They come on, they sign 1 or 2 locations or a franchise group. they might be paying a very small amount compared to the overall thing, but they're mostly investing their time. That's the main thing you're looking for, because there's so much technology out there that really investing time is sometimes on these pilots even more valuable than the money.
Got it. So yeah, for you're referring to like when they're doing like a pilot run.
Correct.
Yeah, and again, this is part of this conversation, and I apologize to everybody. It's a little selfish for me, and that like we are, meez, we're far more of like a kitchen company or culinary than we are tech. So a lot of this stuff is new to us. And I will say that freemium, like free trials, is not something you just decide to just, hey, you can use our product for free. It takes an insane amount of development, like product development and building, to get it to a place where like there's actually any sort of value if you just start using a tool for free. Like, for better or for worse, you can't just like not talk to anybody at MarketMan or one of these companies and just go use the product, right? You'll never be able to do anything. That's not the case with meez. But it also then created this whole like, well, then who talks to them?
Correct.
And so we have a support team that just talks to them on the CS side, and I'm like, yeah, there's thousands of them, and it's an interesting dynamic that we try to figure out in the company of who's best to support them. I am curious, like, when you have customer success at let's just say that you're at MarketMan, you're going to have it building it up. I'm sure at Starfish. Does it encompass everything from support, like implementation of the tool, to training, to like what all falls into the umbrella of it?
The answer to that depends on the stage of the company. So when you're early on, like I'll say at Starfish, when we hire our first CSM, first customer success manager, they are going to be responsible for onboarding, training, customer service, account management, everything. What we did at MarketMan was we basically, when I joined, we hired 2 CSMs. We had those 2 CSMs doing everything. So that literally means from the second you sign up from the software throughout your lifetime, you're with one person. And what we did was we identified where were they spending the most amount of time. And at MarketMan, it's an inventory tool. That's onboarding. And I'm sure you see it at meez also, like onboarding is everything. If a client gets successfully onboarded, they successfully see value, they're going to stay with you for a long time. So what we did at MarketMan was we first went just from CSMs to onboarding and CSMs. And then we just kept repeating that process where eventually we added trainers and customer service agents and salespeople. So as you grow, everything gets more specialized versus like when you're early on, everyone has to be a generalist.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Before jumping to Starfish, you've now been sort of servicing the restaurant industry for quite a while.
Yeah.
Through a few companies, meaning you've been selling software to restaurants for a long time, to small businesses, as well as like these, multi-unit groups. Like what's changed now? You have your own company, right? So you're doing it. You're doing it all. What do you think is the biggest change that you've seen in terms of like the adoption of software, in terms of how you talk with restaurants, just anything you can think of that's different from what it was when you started this like almost a decade ago?
When I was in college, and I think this is like a lot of people, like I was not a chef or anything like you, but like every single summer I worked at a country club in the kitchen, and I did everything there. I did that for like 3 or 4 summers. And I remember very clearly, like we would literally take paper and we would write down what we need. And then they would go the next day and we would run out of stuff on almost a daily basis. We would have the 86 items for the members almost all the time because we just ran out of stuff. We were terrible at ordering. So I think from then to now, the last 10, 12 years, I do think even though restaurants are not the fastest to pick up technology, the majority of them are using something to help. I mean, we were using a freaking cash register. There was no Toast. There was no Square. Like, we were using a cash register. I think the biggest thing that's changed is, number one, most restaurants are using something to help them from a digital standpoint. And number two, restaurants are much more open to the idea. Like I remember when we first started doing MarketMan, and 8 years ago, I was like employee 7 or 8. Most of the customers that came to us were, no, I think like clipboard is okay for me still. And I think most restaurants today would realize that they need some sort of digital presence, whether that be for sales or delivery or back of house. It's been a big shift that the point of sale companies, I think, have really led. And then the back of house has followed suit, which is really good to see.
Yeah. There's definitely been a paradigm shift I've seen of just the openness, the willingness to use new things.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Starfish, and I also want to talk about AI in general.
Yeah.
And by the way, as we've been talking, I've been doing a little bit of some ChatGPT.
Love it.
To do some fun at the end.
I love it. That sounds great.
It's a little surprise.
I look forward to it.
It's gonna be fun, I promise. All right, so like we've talked about Starfish. You showed me a little bit.
Yeah.
But candidly, I don't know a ton about it, other than what I understand is that you can help to sort of discover opportunities for profitability through leveraging AI. So just talk me through the company. I think it's kind of obvious why you started it, because this is really helpful for restaurants. But share any, fill in the gaps as well there.
I spent 7 years at MarketMan. And I mean, throughout that time, I think I joined, we probably had like 25, 30 customers, and we scaled to a few thousand customers, right? In my 7 years there. And it was an amazing journey. But restaurants kept asking us the same 2 questions. And just to take us back, MarketMan, we worked with 1 location, basically up to like 250 locations. So not the huge chains, but pretty good size. And the 2 questions we kept getting asked were, how am I doing compared to others? And am I making money? Like, how am I actually performing? And I remember for me, running customer success, I always want to say, just look at the data. The data will tell you if you're making money. Look at your cost of goods.
So when you say
report.
making money, you mean like they didn't see the EBITDA of their P&L, or they just didn't know if they were making enough money?
It's a great question. Most of them knew their top line revenue from the point of sale, and then how much cash they had in the bank. But they had very little understanding of what was happening in between. So they knew if they were making profit, but they didn't really know why they were making profit or how much or how things were going. And I'm not just talking about like single locations. I mean, I'm talking about chains that like we're struggling to understand why aren't they making more money? How can they make more?
And sorry, this might be a dumb question. Is it just that they weren't running a P&L with prime costs and OpEx, or to understand their bottom line, or was it?
I'll tell you a quick story. So one of our first customers that signed up for Starfish, 6 location fast food chicken chain, and connected their QuickBooks Online to Starfish, pulled in the data, and it said they lost $50,000 last month as a chain. So I went to the CEO. I said, hey, I don't know if Starfish is correct. We might have a little bug. Did you guys lose $50,000 last month? And he goes, I don't know. I'd have to ask the bookkeeper.
Oh, wow.
So I think so many of these businesses either rely on their external bookkeepers too heavily, or are afraid to actually dig into the numbers because they're not sure what they're looking at, or afraid to see what it says.
By the way, that's really dangerous if you're relying on your bookkeeper to tell you if you made profit, because that's the easiest way for them to just skim
right?
off the top. But is the problem more understanding, 4-wall EBITDA versus overhead of your corporate expenses, in the entire company, or was it not matter? Is this sort of agnostic of whether they're small business or multi-location, that this problem was so acute?
We saw it across the board, where a lot of our customers would get their cost of goods, would get their actual versus theoretical, but then didn't necessarily know how to improve on it and what actions to take to improve. So
you saw people really have their actual versus theoretical? Because I've almost never seen restaurants that have it if they don't have their...
I mean, listen, we had thousands of customers, right? So like the A versus C is really hard. The thing I'll say is, number one, if you're selling one-to-one items, it's a lot easier. right? So we had a lot of customers that were selling one-to-one. That's a lot easier. And then number two, we had some QSRs that, I mean, they were running consistently below 2% variance. Like really have it dialed in. But no, you're right. The majority have.
Yeah, I mean,
it's so hard.
Yeah. So, what does Starfish actually generate a P&L?
Good question. So what Starfish does is we integrate into your accounting system. QuickBooks, Xero, Restaurant 365, NetSuite, whatever accounting system you use, we pull out your P&L, and then we're trying to do two things. Number one, and this is what our customers have been liking the most, is tasks. So on a weekly basis, we email tasks out to our customers, showing them how to lower their costs. An example of that was, I was visiting a customer last week, their 2 locations, their uniform costs had gone up significantly. And it turns out when they opened their second location, the uniform company charged them incorrectly. This went on for a year, and they had no idea of it until they signed up for Starfish. Starfish gave them a task saying, your uniform costs at this location are higher than this location. They shouldn't be. Go reach out to the uniform company. They called the uniform company, talked to them, showed them the numbers in Starfish. They got $2,000 check in the mail and 30-day payment terms and lower costs, all because of this Starfish task. So it's not just about prime costs. We're really looking at the whole business. The first thing we're doing is bringing in your P&L and then giving you actionable tasks and insights to lower your costs. So as you get to multiple locations, comparing location versus location gets really hard. What most multi-units do is do something like QuickBooks, export the data from QuickBooks into Excel, and then manually analyze the data in Excel or Google Sheets. And where it gets hard is a lot of times, and it sounds silly, but you know it's true, there's different chart of accounts at each location, which makes actually looking at food costs or utilities or wages almost impossible. So what we've built at Starfish using AI is basically we can do the chart of accounts for your business, so it's the same across all of your locations. Then all of a sudden you can look at each location for any time period you want, how much money you've spent, percent of sales, percent of budget, and actually compare each location for a specific chart of accounts or overall, which is really hard to do today unless you're using some sort of BI tool.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do. I mean, even with the BI tool, if you don't have a way to normalize the GL codes and things like that, it's a pain in the butt. I mean, we deal with that on the menu sides where we can show the menu cost per location, and it's when you don't have that, it's a big blind spot, and there's more. I feel like there's more than just cost. And I don't want to talk my own book here too much, but the you have different like sales volumes at every location, right? So like you might have things that are a higher cost that at one location you actually use a lot more of than at another location. It's really helpful to know that. Yeah. I mean, the easy example would just be like if you have a ribeye that at location A you sell a ton of, and you don't have a great cost on it, and cost is going up. In another location, you just don't sell a bunch of it because that area, maybe they're more health conscious and you sell more seafood. It's helpful to know that, right? Because then you can, at the very least, you're going to have a higher food cost at that location than another. And I'm sure that plays into everything on the P&L.
We're seeing it a lot where some locations do a lot more delivery than others. And knowing keeper costs or takeout costs at one location compared to others is really helpful, especially as you grow, because chances are when you're adding new locations or new franchises, you're modeling it off of an existing location. And it's really good to know what location to model it off of, not just this generic brand.
Yeah. So, just digging under the hood, like, how does the AI do this? And then, by the way, we're going to talk about AI for a little bit.
Great. I love it.
We haven't talked about it much on the show, so we'll chat about that a little bit. But how does it actually work? Are you using an existing language model? Did you guys build your own model? Are you augmenting a model? Like how are you actually taking action on this data?
So I'm gonna tell the initial story of what I thought we were gonna do, and then I'll tell you how we do it today. So I thought it was gonna be pretty easy. Where I thought what we were gonna do. So this is just a disclaimer: don't put your data in ChatGPT. If you want your data not in ChatGPT for the whole internet to eventually see and get trained on, if you use their API, so if you use the OpenAI or Claude or any other API, it doesn't train on your data. That's just like a disclaimer. So what I initially did was I initially basically like built like a fake data set for a restaurant. I uploaded it into ChatGPT and I said like, analyze it for me. ChatGPT is not great at just analyzing raw Excel data. Like you give it an Excel or a table, it's not great at that. So what we're doing is ingesting the P&L. We code in Python. So we're running a bunch of Python scripts on top of the data. We're then feeding the Python into the OpenAI API, and then we're getting asks out of it. So what we found was we originally thought we'd just feed the data into OpenAI. That would be good enough. But we found we had to add a layer on top to help the AI. And we're using OpenAI right now to basically figure out what to say and what to do.
Got it. And that data is secure as long as you're not going direct to the UI and ChatGPT.
Correct. Yep. So through the API, it is secure. They don't train on it. They don't use it. It's still owned by the customer.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really important to know as well. So, so today that's what you're doing, right? You're sort of taking this P&L data, you're training, you're throwing some scripts, at the API that goes to ChatGPT, and then you're spitting out kind of, some results for these customers.
Action items.
What are you planning for down the road?
Yeah.
What's in your roadmap?
So a couple of things. So number one is most restaurants just operate on a hunch. This is what my food cost should be. This is what my labor should be. We will have enough data soon where we can actually benchmark you against local competitors, peers, to see what is your food cost should be based on your region, your type of restaurant. What should your utilities be based on those things? So the first thing that we want to start doing is real benchmarking. We have benchmarking today in the product, but it's more directional than perfect. But I think with more data and more customers, we'll be able to do really good benchmarking. I don't know if you saw, but Toast just rolled out benchmarking recently where they can say like, this is how much lattes cost in the region. And I think we can do that on the cost side really nicely. The second thing that we want to start doing is much more in-depth analytics on more than just your P&L. So your P&L is really good because it is the system of record. But when it comes to things like labor and inventory, it's mostly just line item data. So our vision of what we want to do is just get as much data from all your different systems as possible, run AI on top of that, so you don't have to do manual data analysis anymore. So again, I come from MarketMan. Imagine using inventory software like MarketMan. Chances are that there's some sort of price change report or there's a purchase report where you can see how prices are going up and down. Well, historically, you've had to manually look at that. If you run AI on top of that, it can really easily show you when the price went up, why the price went up, and what to do about it, and how it affects you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we're doing all the same. It's such a cool opportunity that's coming our way.
Yeah.
I mean, with absent of having the actual real recipe data, it's really impossible to get anybody's real food cost. I think that's the real blocker for most people. Because you can't just count your ingredients. You gotta count all the stuff when you're walking.
Yes.
But there's so much opportunity there. Are there, independent of what you're doing with the Starfish AI, are there other things that you're really excited about as it relates to what's happening with AI in, like, not even just like restaurant, like, yes, there's restaurant operations and we could talk about that, but just generally speaking in your life or whatever, that's really exciting and that you're digging into in terms of like using AI.
I'll give some personal examples and I'll tell on the business side. So on the personal side, like I have a daughter, she's 1.5 years now, and like AI has changed the game for me entirely. And like the silliest example I could give is like, I don't know, 1 year ago, she started getting teeth. It happens, right? So I wanted to know, what toothbrush should I buy? Instead of reading through like 10 Google links and tabbing them all out, I can just ask something like ChatGPT or Perplexity, and I can get into Perplexity and what it is, but I can just ask an AI. It saves me a tremendous amount of time, and I can just go play it. So I think the first thing is on the personal side, like I very rarely Google search anymore. And I recognize I'm probably in the minority when I say that, but like I almost never Google search for something anymore. I always start with an AI engine that can spit out an answer for me. On the
what is Perplexity?
So Perplexity is Google search with AI. So imagine that you type in a question, and again, this example was, my daughter just got her first tooth. What kind of toothbrush should I use? And it will actually, instead of giving you links, give you an answer to that with links you can click on for the answer. So it basically said, here's the type of toothbrush you should use. This is why you should use it. And here are a couple links you can click if you want to go buy it.
Yeah.
So helpful.
It's cool. Yeah. I use it a lot as well. And I actually, like I said, I did something while we were talking that I'm going to show you, but I mean, it's fun, but I use it like with my kids. I use it a lot, like for a lot of more like just nonchalant fun, right?
Totally
so we'll
agree.
I have the action button on my phone, and we'll just pretend and see how crazy imaginative we can be. And I'm like, Stone, my kids, I'm like, what kind of picture do you want to see? And my daughter will say, unicorns. I'm like, Stone, what are they eating? Acorns. Cool. Where are they? They're on a spaceship. And then we just got to go through this whole thing.
How cool
and then
is
I'm
that?
like, show me a picture of a unicorn and a rhinoceros on a spaceship eating acorns with Daniel Tiger, and then they see this picture and they're like so excited about
awesome.
it.
I love
and they get
that.
to use their imagination, It's just DALL-E and ChatGPT.
Awesome.
So there's a lot of fun, with the kids. And of course, we're just asking questions whenever they have a question about like, what's a bobcat? I'm just like, show me a picture of a bobcat and 5 facts.
Yeah.
But I use it actually a lot I do use it a lot for code, because I never learned like fully how to code, but I'm learning a lot through GPT. It's also, by the way, like if you ever get stuck on a long, if anybody's doing like Google Sheet formulas for P&Ls or whatever, hopefully you don't have to do that much longer, but or randoms, like I have to do a lot of modeling for things. I just throw the formula in Google Sheets and say, hey, something is broken, and it will tell me and give me fixes, and it's so fast.
I started I want to start writing like a little newsletter that we send to our customers on a weekly basis, and I want it to look good, but like I don't really want to pay for a newsletter service right now. So I just said I just went to ChatGPT and said, this is what I'm looking for. Can you write me custom HTML for it? And it literally spit out perfect HTML that I can just throw into a template and fire off emails from. Like I don't know how to write HTML,
it's crazy.
But like I can say make the font smaller. It just does it like that. Where I can't do that stuff.
It's Jordan. It's what's nuts is like when I first started doing this. First of all, I didn't even know like what to do with code. Like where do I put it? So like the first thing I built was I fast a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped doing intermittent fasting, but I do like long fasts, like 5-day water fasts. And while I'm fasting, I'm always tracking my glucose levels and my ketone levels. And then there's a calculation that basically tells you whether you're in ketosis or not. And it's basically a formula. I won't get into the details of it, but like there's a, I wanted to make this calculate. I didn't want to keep doing this calculation each time on my phone. And so I built a front end calculator web app of how to calculate my GKI. And so I would ask ChatGPT to build this whole thing for me. I kept working on it, and I was like, oh, where do I put it? Where do I put it? And then it explained for me, I said, I'm using a Mac. It's go to your terminal. I was like, cool. And then do this, and then run it here.
Yeah.
And I walked through the thing, and I had a couple questions along the way, and it basically taught me how to build a front end app. And I was like, hey, I want to put this button here, and literally, and that was on. I have the the paid version of it. That was a year ago on 3. I don't even know what it would do now. It's pretty insane.
I think that's what's super exciting is it's really democratizing software for everyone. Where it's only big companies would have access to these kinds of tools that would let you do that. And now me and you as consumers and small businesses can do these kinds of things that they've never had access to, which is so cool.
Yeah, and there's also I don't know how. I mean, I don't know how much you can trust it, but like I'm working on some real estate stuff right now, and I threw a lease document in there, and I just asked it a bunch of questions, and I said, "Can you tell me 5 things that seem aggressive on this thing?" And I want to make sure I protect this, and it spits it. It's insane, you know. I mean, I'm assuming it's. I mean, I'll still run it by an attorney, but like I'm saving a bunch of time, with making sure I have the things that I need.
And the thing that like I try to always remind myself and other people is like, we're in the second inning of AI, if not the first inning. Like it is not perfect today. It hallucinates. It does. But we are still so early on that just think about how good it's going to get. And like that's the exciting part. It's less about what can it do for you today. It's more about like, can you find cool things for today? And then just think about what this is going to get to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, I did something kind of
I love it. Let's see
it. All right, so while we were talking, I went to ChatGPT and I asked it a couple questions related to Starfish.
Awesome.
So I asked it to make me a funny tagline.
I like it.
For Starfish.
Good.
And some other taglines, which I'm going to go through, and then some limericks as well.
That's awesome. I love it.
So I'm going to share with you what just happened.
Awesome.
All right, so I said, here's a company called Starfish. Here's what it does. Blah, blah, blah. Like, give me a tagline. Actually, I asked for 5 examples. I picked the best one. 5 examples of like funny taglines that are witty. I'm gonna read this to you. Are you ready? All right. Turn your dough management into domination with the power of AI and Starfish.
Pretty good. It's actually not bad, Burpee.
It's pretty good.
It's actually not bad. I might steal that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm imagining like I can target some pizza companies with that kind of slogan on social. I like that. Or go to Pizza Expo with it. That's good.
Okay, then I asked it, I would like a tagline in the style of Taylor Swift for Starfish. This is all for Starfish. Now, I don't know Taylor Swift songs. I'm sorry. I'm starting to try to learn them, so I don't know if this is actually a song. I think it is. The line is, "We are never ever getting back to low profits. With Starfish, we're only going up."
What?
I don't know. I think that's a song. I'm pretty sure that's.
I'm not going to sing it.
I'm going to Google.
I'm not going to sing it, but yes, we're never ever getting back
there's
together.
A Taylor Swift song called "We Are Never Getting Back." Yeah. Okay, got it. All right. And then I asked it a Jay-Z one. Okay, I want a tagline in the style of Jay-Z.
I'm expecting a lot of Z's.
I got 99 problems, but AI ain't one. Starfish comes in, profits begun. It's not bad. I think the first one was probably the best. We got 2 limericks and then we're done.
It's impressive.
Here. I said, okay, now I want a limerick that talks about Starfish, blah, 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 whatever. Okay. Are you ready? Starfish arrived on the scene where data and dining convene. With insights so deep, competitors weep as profits grow lean and keen. You can have these, by the way. I'll send it to you.
These are impressive. Like, it's just funny because like I use AI in a very similar way. Like when I'm writing a blog post, I like say like, can you redo this sentence and make it funnier? Or like, this is great.
I'm telling you, like, first of all, this turn your dough management into domination with the power of AI and Starfish. Like, you got to use that.
It's good. I agree.
It's just insane that like, I mean, whatever. Those are pretty good. But
what's crazy is like, how long did that take you?
Oh, I was talking to you while
I did. Is that crazy? Like so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be like, years ago, that would be a room full of marketing and branding people, and they'd have 12 ideas and ruminate on it for 12 weeks.
This is what you're paying
as opposed to just
John Hamm a lot of money for.
As opposed to 0 personality and, issues with, you just like, give me an example. Cool, I'll take that one. I mean, I'm probably, that's very reductionist. I'm sure there's a lot more that goes into that stuff. But anyways, there you go.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Send those to me. I'm going to use some.
I will. What makes you really angry? Well, like, what makes you like blood boiling angry?
I think like on the micro level, one of the things that I struggle with in the restaurant industry is going to a meeting and having someone no show me. That's the micro level. And like, I think anyone in the restaurant industry or any sales job has like been there where if it's over Zoom or virtual, it's one thing, but like when you go somewhere in person and spend the time, like deep breaths are necessary. You know what I mean? I think on the macro level, I think in today, 2024, like you need to be willing to try new things. I think people that are just like so stuck in their ways that they're refusing to listen and try new things really makes me upset. And it's not even for my benefit, it's for their own. And like, I'm not saying that on the Starfish side. I'm saying in general, like, you need to be willing to try new technology. You need to be willing to try new marketing to acquire customers. You need to be willing to try different loyalty things. Like, just try different things. Like, want to run a better business than you run today. Like, don't just be so stuck in the ways and don't think that okay is great.
So essentially being closed-minded and a lack of respect.
Yes.
Sound like
yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. How do you feel like you can sort of manifest that as values in your company today with your team?
First thing is like just always show up. Like just always show up, always try new things. Like if you have a meeting, show up to the meeting, be prepared. If you're not, that's okay. Just say like, hey, can we push it to tomorrow? Like that's not a big deal. And then I think the second thing is failing on the micro level is totally okay. Like falling down and getting back up when you're running a restaurant or a startup or anything is good. Like try a new special, try a new feature, try a new email tagline, try different things. And if you fail, just get the data and try something different. That's what we're trying to manifest here is how can we show up for work every day, really energized, knowing it's going to be an uphill battle as a startup. And then number two, how can we try different things, recognizing that not everything's going to work?
Yeah. It's interesting. I totally agree. And I find, something I have a lot of these things on my wall. And one of them is, how are you complicit in the environment that you've, that you're so complaining about, which, I think about all the time. And I think as it relates to us as leaders or anyone that's as a team, I totally agree. It's so frustrating when people don't try, or people, ruminate for too long, or, aren't taking that leap or aren't, speaking up. And I think that the majority of the time there is some personality things there, but regardless, like, have you created an environment where people feel comfortable failing and feel comfortable, speaking up? And that's hard and it takes work. But for me, it's like rewarding and knowing that, like, even if that stuff's happening, it's something that's on me that I have to figure out how to, get better at to like create that environment. Because so often it's funny how the things that bother us are, at least in some way, in our control,
Yeah. I just read a book called Relentless by the guy who trained like Michael Jordan and Kobe and Dwayne Wade and all these guys. And he was talking about how like the one thing they all had in common was just like, I messed up. It was my fault. Here's what I'm going to do to move forward. It was never like deflecting onto someone else. It was never trying to say like, well, here's what happened. Here's why I messed up. It was just like, take it. You messed up. Here's how you move forward. And like, I think that's can resonate in every industry.
Yeah. It feels, to be honest with you, once you get past it feels really good to be able to identify and just call out that you fucked up, because then it's off you, right? It's like, okay, I said it. I screwed up. It's on me. But now I can go and fix that. Whereas otherwise, it's just something that you have to stew on. So, speaking of books, are there other books that you like or that you recommend people?
So when I was running my first company, I just read like business book after business book after business book, and I just like got burnt out of business books. So now this is super nerdy of me, but I basically have a rotation. I do fiction, business, biography, fiction, business, biography. I try to rotate to keep myself fresh. So on the fiction side, I'm on an Ayn Rand kick right now.
Oh, interesting. Wow, I haven't read that in a long
I'd
time.
never read it before.
Which one are you reading?
I'm on Fountainhead now. So I read Atlas Shrugged. She has a middle book as well, Anthem, and then I'm on Fountainhead now. On the biography side, Living with the Seal. It's Jesse Itzner and David Goggins, like my favorite book. It is, and like I listened to the audiobook and Jesse narrates the audiobook. It's awesome.
What a funny story that is too.
What a wild story. Like the whole idea is crazy. So I'd say those have been like what I've been reading recently.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm similar. I used to, for so many years, I would just never read fiction other than historical fiction. Like I'm a big fan of James Michener and things like that. But recently I've tried to throw some into the mix. Like and to be honest with you, I grew up, my parents really loved science fiction and I was just not into it. But I started reading Isaac Asimov. I'm like, man, this is pretty interesting. Right now I'm rereading Benjamin Franklin's biography by Walter Isaacson.
I haven't read that one. Is it good?
And holy shit, man. Benjamin Franklin is, I don't know why we don't talk about this person more often. It's insane the amount of things that we have today that he started.
Yeah.
The list is insane. He started like the first fire department, the first library. Basically the idea of this sort of like non-parochial, bringing all of the colonies together was like something he was trying to push for years. This idea of uniting the states among many. The amount of things, it's pretty insane. What he contributed, and he was such an entrepreneur, but not necessarily like capitalistic, but like was certainly wealthy, and just so many like learning lessons from him. Like I get envious because he started much earlier in his life, just documenting heuristics and ways to live, but in his like 20s. Maybe things were different back there, but yeah, I love biographies as well because there's so much you can learn about just not just to apply to business, life, or personal life, but everything.
I have to read that one. I haven't read that one. I read the Elon Musk one recently, but I haven't read the Ben Franklin one.
The Elon Musk one is great too.
Both really aspirational and like this is exactly what I don't want to be at the same time.
It is. It's such a great example of, things are not binary, and there's so much nuance.
Yes.
There's so much incredible things that he has done, but he also has been pretty terrible to some people, and there's not like it's not black and white, and that's why that's important, right? Is because it's very easy to just completely polarize and just look at someone as evil or not evil, and there's a big spectrum.
Yes, completely agree.
So, anyways, that's enough for us. This was fun. I'm glad we got to catch up.
This is great.
By the way, are you Florida
based? Yeah. Yeah. Was in New York. Grew up in New York, went to Michigan, back to New York, and then my wife's been wanting to move down here forever. And I was very stubborn for a long time, but finally said yes, and I can't imagine ever leaving. It's so nice.
All right. Well, next time you are up north, you 100%. Let me know, and I will let you know if I'm down south. So, all right, man.